لك بالحياة فالله قد مدح الحياة وهو الحيي إذا رأى عبدا تضرع بالدعاء.
Catholic.
Okay, for sure. And why are you Catholic and not a Muslim?
So I am a Catholic because I believe in the wholeness of the Trinity and the Gospels. But I was interested, like, what in sense do you make things that like Islam is true in the Quran versus like I want to know about your beliefs and then sort of go from there because I am interested.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I believe that Islam is a continuation, and the message in terms of its theology is identical to everything that the prophets prior to Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught, whether it be Abraham, whether it be Isaac and Ishmael, whether it be Moses, whether it be David, and whether it be Jesus, right? Oh, yeah, like, if you don't mind, can you turn off the music that's in the background, by the way?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I had no clue that was playing,
good.
And then I saw the comments.
You're okay, don't worry. Yeah, so my evidence for Islam, because obviously Islam makes a lot of claims. And one of those claims is that Islam is the religion of the previous prophets. Now, if you weren't already aware, we as Muslims, we don't only believe in Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. We believe that he was the final messenger. We believe that he's the seal of the prophets. But we believe that there were prophets before him. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And that's where I find the first three original Abrahamic religions so interesting and how they all intertwine. And so many people get that mixed up when really we do believe a lot of the similar things. And then it just comes into that. It really does come down a lot to Jesus Christ because that's where it differentiates between the Muslims and Jewish and Christian denominations.
Yeah, of course there are going to be similarities naturally, but there are key differences, right? And the differences are in theology. There are differences pertaining to what we believe about God. And that's actually part of the evidence for Islam, because we see consistent theology between what Islam preaches about God and what the previous prophets preach about God as well, right? One example that I can use is, we'll talk about Jesus a little bit. You are a Christian, obviously, so I assume you believe in the Trinity. Does Jesus preach to worship the Trinity? Or does he
Yes, he does.
Okay, where does he preach to worship the Trinity?
So,
I can't hear you when you go off the screen, by the way.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
You're good.
Jesus preaches Trinity multiple times. That's actually where we get the Filioque in the Nicene Creed. He says that he is consubstantial with the Father, and that's where you get, again, that also he's directly from the Father. And I know you mentioned that verse earlier.
Hold on. Where, though? Where does Jesus say to worship the Trinity? Where does he say that he is consubstantial with the Father? And where does he say that he is begotten of the Father? All of these Trinitarian beliefs, where do we get these? What verses?
Well, the first aspect of like Trinitarian beliefs, it's going to be all the way back in Genesis, where it's talking about the Word and how that Holy Spirit flew over the waters when there was not yet land in that sense, and how the Word, being the Father, is spoken. That Holy Spirit is taking it out to make it happen, and the Son is there as well. Then when we go...
Wait, hold on, but I'm asking in Jesus's words, where does Jesus preach the Trinity?
Okay, so is it okay if I pull that up really quick? But just really quick, because to establish the Trinity, that would mean that Jesus is God, correct?
Yeah, to say Trinity, it means that Jesus is God, Father is God, Holy Spirit is God. They are identical in essence, however, they are distinct in personhood. So can you show me where Jesus preaches this belief in the New Testament?
Well, first you mentioned that verse earlier where he says, I am who am, I am God. That word in Hebrew is... Huh?
He didn't say that. And that verse isn't in Hebrew, it's in Greek.
Yes, no, the original texts were in Hebrew, and then there's the Greek translation, which is the Septuagint.
No. We're talking about the New Testament.
Yep, that's the Septuagint.
The Septuagint is not the New Testament. The Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Old Testament.
No.
Yes, the Septuagint is the Old Testament. It's not the New Testament.
Well, regardless, then the New Testament is also in both Greek and Hebrew because those were the two. Yes.
No, the New Testament was written in Ionian Greek.
Yes, the Septuagint is in Greek, and that's
I'm not talking about the Septuagint. I'm talking about the New Testament. So the verse that we quoted in John 8:58, that's Greek.
Okay.
And the Greek of that verse is ego eimi. Ego eimi, I am, is not a divinity claim, because we see that in other instances in the New Testament where people are using it without claiming divinity.
No, when Jesus says Yahweh, that is the traditional word for being
Jesus
God.
never says Yahweh,
That was
though.
Yes, he does.
Show me in the New Testament where Jesus calls God Yahweh.
Is it okay if I go off screen for a minute to pull it up?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Okay, man. I just want to play Minecraft or something, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, you know what? Who's gonna stop me? Cora, make me able to turn off comments. And I promise 25 minutes. Nah, bro, let them comment, bro. Don't make
I think turning the comments off is actually bad, but...
No, leave them on. Let the people talk. Yeah.
Reese, come back to the screen. Yahweh doesn't appear a single time in the New Testament. Because it's Hebrew, and the New Testament's in Greek.
No, but the Septuagint taught you.
Okay, here you go. The verse I was talking about is actually in John chapter 8, verse 58, and it says right here, Jesus answered, I tell you the truth. Before Abraham was ever born, I am. At that point, he picked up the stones to throw at him. And that's the verse you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but where does that wait, hold on, but you said that you were going to bring a verse where Jesus calls God Yahweh. Where is Yahweh in that verse?
That is what he says. He says, even though it's in Greek, he uses the word Yahweh, which is a Hebrew word. I wasn't claiming that the Septuagint, I'm so sorry if it got misconstrued too, because it definitely could have, but I wasn't trying to claim that the Septuagint or whatever translation it was in Hebrew, but he uses the Hebrew word because that is what the Jewish people used. Yahweh, right here. I am translates to Yahweh.
No, I am translates to, I am is ego eimi, right? And
yes, that would be the direct translation.
But ego eimi is not the same wording that's used when it's talking about God. If he was making the divinity claim that you're trying to make, the wording would have been a bit different.
Exactly, that divinity claim would have been Yahweh, correct? And you're claiming that instead it was ego eimi?
No. The divinity claim wouldn't have been Yahweh because you're trying to tie this to the passage, I believe it's in Exodus, when it says, I am who I am. No, yeah,
that's directly where it comes from.
Yeah, but that's not what Jesus says. Jesus does not say, I am who I am.
Is he not still claiming divinity in this truth, though? Because he's saying, before Abraham was ever born, that would be like an eternal, right? Because
Abraham did not exist eternally, no.
No, but I'm saying it's saying a sense of like an eternal, because if he was before Abraham, if he was before all whoever was, he wouldn't be human in that sense, no? He's claiming to be divine.
No, and I'll explain why. When Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am, he's not claiming that he literally pre-existed Abraham. The way that we understand this, and if we want to interpret Bible with Bible, we can understand that what's happening here is that Jesus is claiming that before Abraham was born, he was decreed to be the Messiah, and he was known in the foreknowledge of God and existed in the foreknowledge of God. Not truly existed as a human being alongside the Father or a person alongside the Father or whatever it may be. He's claiming that before Abraham was, he was decreed to be the Messiah.
That works, though, because this is one of the most powerful statements uttered by Jesus. When he said he existed before Abraham was born, he was undeniably proclaiming... I'm sorry, I was still talking. I'm sorry, I was still talking. Because he was He was undeniably proclaiming his divinity. Not only did Jesus say he existed before Abraham, he also applied God's holy name to himself, which is that I am, in Exodus 3:14. That claim demands a response. It cannot be ignored. The Jewish leaders tried to stone Jesus for that blasphemy. They wouldn't stone him, and if it was blasphemy, if it was just ego Amy saying I am, that claim wouldn't make sense in that context. But Jesus is God. Why would they stone him if that wasn't blasphemy? If he,
You're done now, right?
I'm almost done. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm almost done. Because
you asked the
that's my
question,
next
that's why.
question. Why would those Pharisees stone him if he wasn't making a heretical claim, claiming to be God? Why else would they stone him in that sense?
Yeah, beautiful. So since you were listening to the live, I'm going to ask you the same exact question that I asked the previous person. Why are you using the words of the enemies of Jesus as an evidence for Jesus' claims? Why are you saying that the fact that the Jews wanted to unalive him is an evidence that he was God? Why are you taking their words as authoritative?
Their words are not authoritative. However, their reaction shows something that they said. You are claiming that instead of saying he is in a divine claim, that he was saying it just to say he is a person. He is like just saying ego Amy, like you said.
No, I never said that. No, I never said that. I said that when he says I am, he's claiming that he was decreed to be the Messiah before Abraham was born. And we can refer back to 1 Peter 1:20, where it talks about Jesus existing in the foreknowledge of God. We're talking about that type of preexistence, because remember, we're interpreting Bible with Bible. The Bible makes the claim that Jesus existed in the foreknowledge of God. I'm going to take that over whatever interpretation you want to give me, because existing in the foreknowledge of God does not mean that you're claiming eternality. All it means is that Jesus was decreed to be the Messiah, and he existed in God's knowledge before Abraham was born. It's as simple as that. That's not a divinity claim.
No, it is, and that's what we're trying to prove. That reaction proves it was a divinity claim.
But why is their reaction in evidence?
Pharisees?
Why is their
exactly
reaction
where
in
I'm
evidence?
going. I'm so sorry. Could I talk? Because I'm about to get to that. The Pharisees' reaction, that is evidence, because if he was just saying he is in the foreknowledge that he is the Messiah, the Pharisees would not have that type of reaction. If they're willing to kill somebody, with murder being a grave sin in Jewish culture, they would not stone someone if it was not for blaspheming or breaking one of the covenants with their Lord. This is him breaking a covenant by claiming to be God, unless he truly is. That foreknowledge is not simply foreknowledge of him being the Messiah, that is him being one with God in that Trinitarian formula.
Okay, beautiful. So let me ask you this. Do you believe that the Jews truly understood Jesus and what he was saying?
Jesus is the fullness of revelation.
No. Answer the question. Do you believe that the Jews truly understood Jesus? It's a yes or no question. Did the Jews truly understand the words of Jesus?
No. And that's because
so sorry, but it was a yes or no question. So you just agreed that the Jews
not simply a yes or no question.
You did agree to it being a yes or no question. No, you already agreed. I said it's yes or no before, and you answered no.
So you're being manipulative?
No, you agreed that it was a yes or no question. So since you agreed that it's a yes or no question, and you said that they did not fully understand the words of Jesus, then you just conceded that it is not an evidence in terms of the way that they reacted, because they did not fully understand what he was saying. That's why we see in so many different passages all over the Gospel of John and other Gospels where the Jews over and over again misunderstand Jesus. Even in John 8 itself, the verses leading up to John 8:58, the Jews misunderstand Jesus, and Jesus is forced to correct them because they have a tendency to misunderstand him. And that proves that their reaction is not an evidence for anything that they believed or whatever it may be, an evidence for their claim to his blasphemy, because Jesus over and over and over again is forced to correct them. So if their understandings need to be corrected, then their reactions are not justified because they are built off of false misunderstandings, as you already conceded. They did not fully understand the words of Jesus.
May I say something?
Yes, you may.
If I said that the Jewish people at that time fully understood the words of Jesus, then I would not be a Christian. I would be Jewish. I would not agree with what I believe. When I say that they did not fully understand what Jesus was saying, that's because he's the fullness of revelation. The plan of God was not fully fulfilled until he came and died on that cross for our sins. When I say that, I'm not succeeding and saying that the Pharisees' reaction was not correct or that they simply didn't understand him. I'm saying that they did not understand that he was fully God until he rose again on that third day. Their reaction is showing the type of language he used. I'm saying that by their threat to stone him, that is something undeniable. That he said something that must have required something that could have angered them to the brink of murder. Simply saying in the sense that he would say, I am, that like you are claiming he did, that would not warrant that type of reaction.
It would though, because even leading up to John 8:58, he was over and over again correcting their interpretation of his words. So Jesus is already setting up this understanding that the Jews misunderstand all of the claims that he is making, even in the passages leading up. Yeah, we can read it. That's perfectly fine. We can pull up John 8:58.
Let's go ahead. Jesus states he is eternal.
Wait, I'm putting on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So
I have my Bible out right now, too.
We can start 50 through 58.
I think 48's a better place to start because you really need that whole context.
All right, for sure. 48 then.
The people retorted, "You Samaritan devil, didn't we say all along that you were possessed by a demon?"
Hold on, I'm putting it on the screen. All right. So,
what translation is this?
Him. What translation do you want?
I use NLV personally.
NLV. Okay, let's find that then. NLB or V?
It's totally okay if you don't want to. I just wanted to make sure that like it wasn't edited or anything.
Don't worry, I'm using NLV. Not a problem.
Okay.
The Jews said to Jesus, "Are we not right when we say you are from the country of Samaria and you have a demon?" Jesus said, "No, I do not have a demon. I honor my Father. You do not honor me. I am not looking to honor for myself. There is one who is looking for it. He says what is right from wrong. For sure I tell you, if anyone keeps my word, that one will never die." Then the Jews said to him, "Now we know you have a demon. Abraham died. The early preachers died. You say, if anyone keeps my word, no one will ever die." So notice this. They are already misunderstanding him. Because Jesus is not talking about physical death. He's talking about spiritual death.
He's talking spiritual death.
Exactly. So they're already misunderstanding him. So watch. Jesus already has to correct them. They're already incapable of comprehending the words that he's saying. So now we can
he didn't correct him that last time when they were going to stone him, did he?
Well, it's kind of hard to correct people when they're running at you with stones, don't you think?
No, I think I would try even harder to correct them.
If people are running at you with stones, you're going to be too busy trying to save your own life instead of trying to refute them with words, right? Don't you agree?
But have you ever seen an instance
Wait, hold on. Answer. Don't you agree? If somebody is running at you with stones, you're going to be too busy trying to save your life instead of verbally refuting them. Don't you agree?
That's according to my own person, though. But if we look in the Gospels and we look in simply the context of the Bible and historical examples, don't you think Pharisees would try to use any act of cowardice against Jesus? But we never have once seen him running away or trying to hide from their claims. He has always faced it head on. And in this,
he simply never ran away? In terms of them trying to unalive him, he's never ran away?
You've never seen him not trying to correct them. If there was ever a misconception, he corrected them.
He's never ran away. But hold on. So at them trying to unalive him, he's never ran away from them?
Well, first we have to set up an example of running away, because what you're going to try and do here is a logical fallacy. No, you're going to have to answer the question.
Okay, and name the logical fallacy.
Okay, because I'm saying that your question here, depending on how I answer...
Fallacy. Name, what logical fallacy am I committing? Tell me what's the name of it.
I don't know the direct name, but it's where you're going to try and use my direct question of an answer without specifying necessarily what the terms of what that question means against me. So let's determine what we mean by running away.
So we don't know the fallacy.
Let's determine...
we don't need to determine that yet. We can finish reading the verses, and then we can determine what this means. So then...
Well, no, because now you're backing out because I called you out.
Backing out from what? Backing out from...
From your original question you asked me.
What was my question?
You asked me about has he ever ran away.
And are you going to answer yes or no to that?
Well, first we have to determine what we mean by run away.
I think run away is kind of self-explanatory. It means you run away, right?
Well, he's never ran away from an argument. Of course he's
I'm
had
not
to flee
talking
from-
about running away from an argument. I asked you specifically,
Yes, you
has
are.
he ever
That's why we have to determine.
I
See, then
never
we
said
have different
that. Wait.
ideas of run away.
No, I
why we
actually
have to
clarified. No, I actually clarified what I meant by run away when I said verbatim before. Isn't it the case that if people are running at you with stones, you're going to be too busy trying to save your life? So I'm not talking about running away from an argument. I'm talking about physically running away from a punishment. Has Jesus
of
ever done
course
that?
Do you have any
I'm
texts of
asking.
him ever
I'm
doing that?
asking a question. Had Jesus ever ran away after the Jews tried to stone him?
Do we have textual evidence of it in the
It's a
scriptures?
yes. It's a yes or no. If you don't know, just say I don't know, and we can.
Then I
move
don't
on.
know.
Okay, perfect.
Because
We
I'm
can
sure
move
we
on.
can find texts if we'd like to.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find texts of that too, because naturally that's going to be the case. If people are running at you with stones, you're not going to just let them unalive you. But
And fleeing
regardless,
from.
yeah, but obviously, according to you, he was awaiting the time in which he was going to be crucified, so he wouldn't have let that happen in the first place. So he obviously would have ran away. But let's continue. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and the early preachers died. Who do you think you are? Jesus said, if I honor myself, my honor would be worth nothing. My Father honors me. You say he is your God. You have never known him, but I know him. If I said I did not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know the Father and obey his word. Your father Abraham was glad that he was to see my coming. He saw and was happy. The Jews said to Jesus, you are not even 50 years old. How could you have seen Abraham? So this is another misunderstanding. Because Jesus is not talking about Abraham physically seeing him in that moment in which he was living. So that's misunderstanding number 2. So you agree that he's not talking about Abraham physically being glad to see his coming and so on and so forth because Abraham has passed away. You agree that that's not the case, correct?
Well, that's the way the Jewish people are interpreting it.
Yeah, but are they wrong with that interpretation?
They are wrong because he never said that he saw Abraham. It says that Abraham saw him.
Exactly.
And
Yes,
if you go
and
to the
that would indicate like a physical interpretation. Yes,
No,
or
because
no.
if you go to the Greek for the word is to perceive specifically in this context. So it's Abraham receiving prophecy of his coming. That's not Jesus seeing Abraham. He never claims that he saw
No, Jesus
him.
not seeing Abraham. Abraham seeing Jesus.
Exactly.
Right,
And that's
because
not
it's a
physical
prophecy.
sight. Exactly. He got prophecy. He got revelation of Jesus's coming. That's why it says he was glad to see my coming. That's not a physical sight. That's Jesus, I guess, prophecy of Jesus reaching Abraham. So that's misunderstanding number 2. So far in this
Well,
conversation, he's
actually-
misunderstood him twice.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
There actually is a text in back in Exodus where some people do interpret it as the Trinity visiting him. When Abraham is there and Sarah is barren, she can't have children. There's a visiting of 3 visitors and they're mysterious and they're
that's Reese, the problem is that firstly, that's an assumption that that's about the Trinity, 1. 2, the whole point of what Jesus is saying is that Abraham is the one who saw his day. He never claims that he saw Abraham in this context.
no,
But
I'm
that's
not
what they
claiming
accuse him of.
Well, let's finish the verse.
Okay,
and
yeah,
then
we can
go
finish
from
it,
there,
but
because I
we
think
agree. But hold on, but the point is, we agree that this is misunderstanding number 2, because they claim, you see in 57, how could you have seen Abraham? Jesus never said that he saw Abraham. Jesus said that Abraham saw him. He was glad to see his coming. So misunderstanding number 2 is that they lied and said that Jesus claimed to have saw Abraham, but Jesus did not say that. So that's second misunderstanding. So they say, the Jews said to Jesus, you are not even 50 years old. How could you have seen Abraham? And Jesus said to them, for sure I tell you, before Abraham was born, I was and am and will always be. And that's a mistranslation, to be quite frank. If we go to the Greek, it doesn't say that.
really.
Yeah, we
Yes,
look at
really.
it.
So every Bible is mistranslated?
No, every
No, it's
Bible
just
doesn't
this
say that.
one.
It's just this one. Every Bible does not say that.
What the heck
if
type
it
of
was
In fact,
Bible
hold on.
does.
In fact, let's look at all of these translations. Most Bibles don't say that, actually. Most Bibles don't say what yours says, but let's go to the Greek real quick. Nowhere does it say, I am and will always be. All it says is ego eimi. So we have now established a consistent pattern. I'm going to take it off the screen now. We've now established a consistent pattern of the Jews misunderstanding Jesus's claims. And if we already established that over and over and over again, they misunderstand his speech, then that goes to show that their reactions are not justified either. Because you would agree, a reaction based on a misconception is not justified, correct?
No.
It's not justified, which means since they misunderstood Jesus's claim, their reaction, which is to try and stone him, was not justified either. So you just conceded the whole argument.
No.
It's done now.
Because that time he is claiming that. He's claiming that before Abraham, he is. Before Abraham, he is God.
No, but you are adding
Yes.
that into the text. Before Abraham, he was what? I say that what he's saying, and we're interpreting Bible with Bible, and the context allows for this. Before Abraham was born, he was foreknown. Before Abraham was born, he was decreed to be the Messiah, to be a righteous man, to be a teacher, and so on and so forth. He is not claiming physical pre-existence. He is claiming him being decreed and known in the foreknowledge of God. Remember, 1 Peter 1:20.
Okay, so I pulled up another Bible translation because you sort of went around it when you said you were going to turn up a new one. This one is the New International Version, and once again it says, "Very truly I tell you, Jesus answered this, before Abraham was born, I am." Yeah, every single Bible translation I have, it claims with that I am.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what site you're using. I'm not entirely sure if this is credible. But this is what?
Bible Hub. It shows every
Bible
single
Hub.
translation, literally like every single one. But I went to the Greek. I didn't even appeal to a translation. But Reese, let's look at it like this.
Are you fluent in Greek?
No, I'm not fluent in Greek, but I'm capable of seeing what Greek words are used. And it does not say I am and I will always be. It just says I am. That's all it says. Now, let's establish.
Why would that warrant that kind of reaction, though? Okay, wait.
Yeah,
really
but
quick,
that's
we
the
can
point, though.
clarify.
But wait, hold on. But that's the point, though. It didn't warrant that reaction. Nor did any...
Can I say something?
I'm speaking. So no, you can't say something. It didn't warrant
ahead.
that reaction. And you already agreed with me on that. Because you agreed that the Jews over and over and over again misunderstood Jesus. And you also agreed that if the Jews misunderstood Jesus, then reactions based on false suppositions are not justified. So if we agree that the Jews over and over again misunderstood Jesus and they reacted based on that misunderstanding, then their reaction is not an evidence because it wasn't justified. They were not justified in picking up stones and trying to stone him because their reaction was based on a misunderstanding. Simple as that.
Once again, when I say that the Jews' understanding of Jesus was not true, then that would, if I were to say that it was...
No, I'm not using your words. I'm using what we established based on the verses before. They misunderstood him twice.
Yes, but you misconstrued what I said again, because when I clarified when I said that so that this wouldn't happen. When I say that, if I said that they did truly understand Jesus, then I would be Jewish. I wouldn't be a Christian.
No, I'm not using that. Now you're misunderstanding. Both the Jews and you are misunderstanding.
That's what you said.
I said that you agreed with me.
You keep interrupting me, and then you get mad when I interrupt you. I'm so sorry. I was saying something.
I'm so sorry as well. I'm so sorry as well because you misconstrued my words. I never used that against you.
No, but you interrupted me. I was trying to get there, but you keep talking over me.
I interrupted you, but you lied.
No.
Did I ever quote you by saying that the Jews didn't understand him? No. What I
yes,
quoted...
You said, did the Jews misunderstand Jesus?
But I didn't quote you. I didn't quote you in that. I answered my own question.
You said we agreed.
Yeah, we did agree on that. And by we, I'm not referring to you saying, no, they did not fully understand him.
Well, we is a possessive pronoun.
Yeah, well, there was another person on the panel, so maybe I was talking about me and Itachi. But regardless, the point that's being made is that you agreed... Based on the verses before, the verses that we were reading, you agreed that the Jews misunderstood him twice, even before that. And John 8:58 is the third time they misunderstood him. I was talking about that. I wasn't talking about you saying that they didn't fully understand him. I'm talking about what the verses before indicate. Now you
Okay, well, let's get into that then. We're saying Greek is a very diverse language, right? They have like 4 different words for love. They have multiple words for I am, and that's where we're getting into that divinity claim, right? It's like English, where there's 3 different types of there, 3 different types of to, right? Yes, can we agree?
Yeah, we can agree that Greek is very, very intricate.
Okay, and so that's where we're getting into this dispute that we already had over the I am and that divinity claim, right?
Yeah. So let's pull up Exodus 3:14 then, and we can see if the same wording is used. Let's see if Jesus is making the same
Can
claim.
I get there? Can I get there? Because you're saying that wording isn't used, and even in the Greek, if it isn't used, but then what would warrant that reaction? It could, like, if he's not making that divinity claim, why would just simply saying I am get that reaction? Because it is a divinity claim.
That's a good question. What would warrant that reaction? What would warrant that reaction is a misunderstanding of Jesus' words.
If it's a different
the reason why, wait, hold on. The reason why they picked up stones to stone him is because they misunderstood him.
How would that happen if it's a different phrasing, though? You're saying that it was a different word.
Because they are already building up a misunderstanding in the verses before. They already lied about what Jesus said in John 8:57. Jesus never said he saw Abraham, and they lied and misattributed that to him. So what warranted that reaction was a false presupposition. And again, the words of the Jews and the actions of the Jews are not evidence of Jesus saying something, because the Jews are always wrong. Over and over again, they always misunderstand Jesus. So why are you using the Jews' understanding, which we've already proven as false, to prove that Jesus is making a divinity claim instead of only just using his words? Why don't we just stick to the words of Jesus instead of appealing to the Jews who hated Jesus and slandered him and slandered his mother and called his mother a whore and so on and so forth? Why are we using them instead of using Jesus' words?
Because according to my translations and my own research, he did use Yahweh. He did use that phrasing because that reaction is what warrants it. Yahweh and the Greek translation you are using, those are 2 very different words. They would sound different to the people hearing it. So how would that reaction get misconstrued? If it was simply something like in the English where it was there, that would make sense because those 3 things sound the same. Yahweh and the Greek translation you are claiming of it to have used, those aren't the same. Those don't sound the same. How would that happen? That's what I'm saying. Like,
I answered this question over and over again. It's because they were purposefully misunderstanding Jesus. In John 8:57, the verse literally right before, they lie about what Jesus says. Jesus never claimed to have seen Abraham, and they lie and say that he did. So it was based on a purposeful misunderstanding. They lied about what Jesus said, they misinterpreted what Jesus said, and they reacted based on their own lie and their own misunderstanding. That is not Jesus' fault. It is not Jesus' fault that the Jews did not understand what he was saying, because they did not want to understand. You cannot convey something. We are talking in circles because you're not addressing the point. You continuously, over and over again, appeal to the same people who slander Jesus and call his mother a whore and insult him and try to unalive him, and according to you, successfully unalived him. And somehow these people's words and these people's reactions are justification for your theological beliefs. How can you take the people who slandered Jesus and his mother and tried to unalive him, and according to you successfully unalived him? Why are you taking their words and their reactions as authoritative instead of sticking to Jesus' speech on its own?
We're not taking their reactions like as something we should believe. We're taking their reactions to prove a phrasing, but we're simply continuing.
So you're taking their reactions as authoritative? I'm sorry, I can't continue that conversation anymore. You are literally taking their reactions as authoritative. You are using their reactions as an evidence for your belief. Oh my gosh. Why are you using Jesus' enemies as evidence? I'm so confused. Imagine, guys, imagine I go to court, right? Let's use this. Imagine I go to court and I'm being persecuted for a crime. And they say, okay, we want you to call a witness to the stand that's going to back up your saying and back up that you're not guilty. And I go, yeah, I'm going to bring in this guy, but he called me a whore, and he called my mother a whore, and he called my sister a whore. Like, what?